This is Larry the Bearded Wonder with World 11, and you're tuned to the World 11 Podcast Network. Press start to engage your mind.
Hello, this is your host Zoe, and welcome to Mind Over Media Podcast, a podcast powered by the World 11 Network. Here's a note for all listeners. I am not a licensed psychologist, and all views from the show are from my point of view or from the point of view of my guests. Please take this into consideration while listening. Thank you. In today's session of Mind Over Media, we will be discussing the indie game Journey of a Broken Circle and how it gives examples of trauma bonding. So, take a seat, relax, as we get ready to blow our minds.
Spoilers.
As previously stated, there are spoilers ahead. While we try not to reveal everything about the media we cover, there are spoilers about the content. Keep that in mind as you enjoy today's show. Alright, so in today's session we are back with another indie video game. This one's called Journey of a Broken Circle. This game was originally released on September 18th of 2020 by the game studio Lovable Hat Cult. This game actually went on to do so well that it was awarded the narrative winner at the Indiecade in 2020. So just to give you a little bit about what this game is about, it's not a whole lot going on. It's a simple platformer game, and you play as a broken circle, meaning he looks like he had a piece of pie taken out of him, so there's a piece missing, who is on a search to try and become whole again. Across the game, you meet different characters that try to help fill the gap, and these characters offer you different abilities in the game. But what I found most interesting is how those abilities and characters had a much deeper meaning behind them. So before we go into how these are examples of trauma bonding, we first have to understand and know what trauma bonding is in the first place. So, trauma bonding is an attachment between an abused person and their abuser, usually when this abuse continues in a cycle. Another way of defining trauma bonding, which we're not going to talk about for this particular game, but another way of saying that is you're bonding, two people with trauma are bonding and relating to one another about their trauma, and then that becomes what they have in common. I've heard that used as well. So basically for this game, we're going to talk about being connected to someone who is causing trauma. Now, some of the signs that this is happening in a relationship might be if you feel stuck or powerless in your relationship, or you don't really feel you can trust your partner, but you know something's wrong, but you don't want to leave. Not necessarily that you can't, but you don't want to. You want to try and make it work because it has this dopamine effect where things are going bad and then something really good will happen, in between. And so you tell yourself, well, if I just deal with this bad part for a second, I'll get to the good part. So also people tend to stay in these relationships if they think they can help their partner get better. If you want to help that abusive partner, being like, oh, well, I know they can be so much more than that. I can help them get there. Could be a sign of being in a trauma bonded relationship. If people around you tell you to leave that relationship, and I don't just mean, a few friends, but, everyone you seem to bring this person around is sensing something, it might be worth looking into. So now that we know a little bit about trauma bonding, which I fully suggest you going in and researching yourself, because there are a lot of facets, there are a lot of ways this can take place. But for today, I'm focusing in a relationship, whether that be a friendship, a romantic relationship, or what have you. But there's a lot of reasons why trauma bonding can be a thing. It can happen between family members as well. But that is an entirely separate session that we're going to have to go into. So let's focus back on this game. How does it show examples of trauma bonding? So one of the characters you meet in the game, their name is Sticky the Pine Cone. And his ability is exactly what it sounds like. He helps you stick to walls. Now, initially you find Sticky, and he's just stuck on this rock. Well, not really stuck, but he's just on this rock by himself, not moving, not going anywhere. And Circle says, hey, come with me. And he basically kind of has this, like, yeah, I guess so attitude. And as Circle tries to keep going with Sticky seems to not want to move or go anywhere. He always says that Circle's going too fast. And Circle keeps trying to push him forward, keeps saying, hey, you'll like it if you just do this. Hey, keep going, we can keep pushing. And that mimics the sign of thinking that you can better that person. He thinks that Sticky will just be happy if he tries something else. He wants to change Sticky, but Sticky's pretty, stuck in his ways. And he doesn't want to do that, and in the end he decides, nope, I'm leaving, I'm gonna stay in this spot, it's a good spot, you can be on your way. The next person that Circle runs into, I wouldn't really say is toxic in a way, but this is one of those situations where the two are bonding over the fact that they have trauma, not necessarily that one is causing the other trauma. So Balloon was stuck in this like balloon group, like you might see when someone sells balloons, and he was tired of being stuck there, and he wanted to be free. Balloon wanted to be free. Circle said, okay, well, why don't we go explore and be free together? And initially, they were having a great time. They're like, wow, this is so amazing. We can do so many things together. And then Balloon starts to question their relationship on, are they really being free right now? Because everything that they're doing, they, have to do together. Balloon realizes that, they wanted to be free, but they're stuck to the broken circle, so they're not really free, they're just stuck to somebody else. And they start to realize that their relationship is very codependent, and Circle, of course, doesn't want Balloon to leave, because they don't know what they're going to do if Balloon leaves, because they have very little self-worth, but we're going to get into that in a moment. But Balloon says, hey, this is for the best, for the both of us, and Balloon decides to go off on their own. Now, the next piece that you run into, I thought was interestingly named. The name of the character is Perfect. And instead of being a balloon or a pine cone that's kind of shaped like the missing piece, this Perfect character literally is the missing piece. Matches with him perfectly, fits into the spot. It looks like a piece of pie. And when you get Perfect, it's like, man, life is great. He's able to zoom really fast. He can do all these cool tricks. But then he realizes that Perfect is moving too fast, and he can't enjoy what's going on around him. So Perfect wasn't so perfect after all. And, I just thought it was interesting that this piece was named Perfect. You thought that this would be the best thing for him, but it's not. It's exactly what he has been, what the Broken Circle's been looking for this whole time. But even then, it still wasn't perfect. And actually, in the end of that partnership, the Broken Circle actually ends up leaving the perfect piece. And I think all of this circles back to how Circle is taking part in this trauma bonding. So, like I said, he thought perfect was what he needed, but he realizes that isn't it. And he finds out why at the end of the game. Because, like I said earlier, Circle doesn't have a whole lot of self-worth. He's like, oh, I'm broken. Nobody wants me. I don't have a purpose. Um, you know, I need to find somebody to fill this gap so I have a purpose. So that was, problem number one, because you can't find your purpose in somebody else. You gotta have, your own self-worth. You can't let other people give you your worth. Because that's just going to lead down to a road of disaster if you're constantly looking for someone else to validate your existence. Also, in between each partnership, when they split, Circle goes through this immense depression, which is represented to him falling into these caves, very much like the depression section in the Grist game we talked about before. And every time he goes down there, there's this black mist that's telling him, you're nothing, you'll never be nothing, no one wants you, it's your fault that they left. And this is that negative thinking that comes in trauma bonding, where everything that's going wrong you blame on yourself. It's never, it's never the fault of the person who did you wrong. It's always your fault. And every time you encounter this black mist, you run away from it and you get away from it. But in the end, you finally face it and you realize you're okay. And that you didn't need to run this whole time and find somebody else to, protect you from that or keep you from facing that. And in the end, he learns that he only needs himself to be happy and that he gives himself purpose. He learns to just be happy with being a broken circle, and that's perfectly fine. In the end, he actually meets up with an entirely different shape. They're not broken or anything, but not a character who could fill the space, and they go off happily together. So, I know there was a lot that I put into your minds over these last few minutes, but I really do advise people to play this game. It is available currently on all platforms. Besides just the deeper meaning that you find with trauma bonding, it takes a look at existentialism as well. There are some other characters that show up in the game that I did not mention who are very good analogies for other mental health situations. But I decided to focus on this, being that this was the main goal of the game. But it's really therapeutic in a way. It reminds me a lot of Grist, actually. It's got good visuals, good music. It's kind of just nice, chill background music. The visuals are very simplistic, and it's a fun little game to play, and I advise everyone to do that. So remember that the name of the game is Journey of a Broken Circle, and it is available on all platforms. Well, will you look at that? The time for our session is over, is up for today. So make sure to come and join us next week for another session of Mind Over Media. I'm your host, Zoe, and as always, remember to protect your peace. You can find Mind Over Media podcast in the World 11 podcast feed at world11.podbean.com. All spelled out, all one word. World 11 Podcast Network can also be found on all major podcatchers, such as Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Good Pods. You can find the Mind Over Media podcast on Twitter at MindMediaPDcast, and the entire World 11 network at World1_1 podcast.